And so, cornflakes now with ChatGPT, whatever. So, um, welcome, Mike Wheeler. Say hi, Mike.
Hello, how's everyone doing today?
Mike, I knew you years ago. I won't say how many years, when we both worked at ILE, International Language Engineering, which became Lionbridge, in the crazy days of acquisitions and so forth in Boulder, Colorado, which I think is like, the cradle of localization back in the day. And at those tender years, technology was so new. You had to use a dongle to get some things to work, and we didn't have sophisticated technologies. They were all kind of emerging. So look at us today. Since then, Mike, I see there's a lot on your LinkedIn, but I know about you. You have a lot that's not on there. You've gone off to do a lot of training. You've become a Salesforce developer and into an instructor. You're probably one of the first people to create all kinds of stuff on the internet. You were kind of an entrepreneur before it was even popular. Can you talk about that?
Sure, yeah, and thank you so much, Marina, for having me. And I have fond memories of working alongside of you. Learned a lot from you a few years ago. I won't say when, and a lot of great skills acquired in the localization industry. And I think what I took away from that was attention to detail and quality matter. And we were working for clients like HP, and if you missed
Mhm.
any little thing, they found it. So I think that helped up my game as far as realizing good enough sometimes isn't good enough. It needs to be exceptional and finding that balance. And so from there, really, and that was at the birth of the internet, really just a few years in whenever we met. And then beyond that, it was probably in the early 2000s whenever I started thinking that there had to be a way to generate revenue off of the internet. And back then, people were saying the internet was a fad. I had family members saying there was no business reason to be on the internet. They just thought it was all nefarious and you shouldn't be on there and oh, it's evil and all this stuff. And I thought, well, that's a cute take, but I felt it was not well informed and knew that it was the future. So I guess there's been a journey, and I look at my own career, and it is one of reinvention. And if I look at when I was in the localization space, and prior to that was when I was doing technical writing, and then got into localization, then continued on with that background of localization to do more technical writing for different clients, and then started creating my own businesses, starting with a business called Documentality. And that was where I was trying. And at that point, I'd moved to Nashville, Tennessee. And my goal was to reach #1 on Google for the search term Nashville technical writer. So it was all about generating leads for a service-based business. And then there's been this strange journey that I've been on to where whenever the Snuggie, the blanket with sleeves, came about, that was my foray into affiliate marketing and taking what I had learned in building a website and HTML and a service-based business to realize, okay, you can actually make money off of products. And these were tangible products. This kind of predates digital products and that whole as seen on TV industry. And so I launched a couple of websites around the Snuggie, and that hit the top of Google Trends and was a huge sensation as far as with media. I learned a lot about marketing and media begets more media. And so then the journey, I noticed that my contemporaries in that space were always thinking about, rather than promoting someone else's product, is how can they create their own product? And so that sent me down the path of trying to create a physical, tangible product. And then in the early 2010s is when I discovered, well, let's see, I guess it was probably 2016 actually is when I discovered the Udemy platform and this whole concept of creating and selling courses online. By that time, I was well into Salesforce and worked several years on the platform. I gained a certain level of experience. Also, I happened to have sons that were into video production, so I knew that we could create courses because of my tech writing background and just communication and all that. And so here we are today where I'm a best-selling Salesforce instructor. And then last year with the advent of ChatGPT, I definitely jumped on that bandwagon very quickly. I was the first instructor on Udemy to create a ChatGPT course. There's now over 7,000 of those. and was the first to teach on edX. Got the opportunity to have a ChatGPT course on that platform as well. And so, and I've recently attained bestseller status in that arena. So that was one of my definitive goals for this year, was to reach that status so that I'm not just so dependent on one technology. So that's a long answer, but that's kind of my journey over the past quarter of a century as far as a lot of reinvention going on.
And I remember you had something about the Snuggie. I thought that it was you that invented it, but no?
No. No,
Okay.
I just knew that it was going to go viral and people would wear them in public. So I searched for what website I would go to because I knew I would see someone out in public. I'm like, oh, that'd be awesome to send that in. And it didn't exist. I searched for the term Snuggie sightings and it didn't exist. So I went and did something about that. And then 3 weeks later, it was at the top of Google Trends. So it went very viral. So the Snuggie was a big hit, and I just helped push it along and take it to higher heights. And then I learned a lot about affiliate marketing along the way. So,
So as you went through and then got into Salesforce, what drew you to Salesforce and becoming a developer?
okay. So that was a very pressing need because I had really plateaued in my technical writing career, and the Snuggie, I knew at the time it was a fad. I also had those same friends and family members telling me, Mike, you know, this is a fad. And I knew it was a fad, but I was making a lot of money from it. And so I'm going to ride that wave for as long as it lasts. I'm still hanging on to those domain names. I'm waiting for that crest to come back up. I think in the next 8 or 9 years, Snuggie will have another moment, if not sooner. And so I'm hanging on to that. But the point is that so when that fad started to fade, and then also Google made a lot of changes. It used to be really easy to rank number one for just about anything. I had reversed engineered how search worked, and Google is much smarter than I, and so that, bless their hearts, they always had updates all the time. And I think the one that really killed me was called Penguin or something like that. I don't know. But it was so precarious because you were at the mercy of the product owners and Google for your search traffic. And so that was decimated. And so I went back into the tech writing mode. And before that, I had abandoned tech writing and was going all in with affiliate marketing. I had other products that would hit big for a little bit, but nothing like the Snuggie. And anytime something would hit big, the merchants would pull their affiliate program because I was making too much. Basically, it's okay, thanks for the traffic. We've got it from here. And so that really in the back of my mind was like, okay, I need to go from a product promoter to a product owner, but what am I going to do in the meantime? And I remember having a recruiter, one of the best recruiters I'd ever worked with, tell me that, okay, Mike, if you can learn something like iOS development, you can double your salary. So I tried and tried and tried, and I tried learning Java and Ruby on Rails and responsive design and all these jQuery and all this stuff, and not the greatest developer in the world. I tried and was just kind of plateaued. And then one day in a bookstore, I discovered the Salesforce platform. It was a book about Salesforce development. And that just really clicked because a lot of that can be done with clicks instead of code. And so that started me down the journey of pursuing first certification. And so this was from late 2011 to into 2012. And it was on the job for a tech writing job that they were using Salesforce. And so I rose my hand, volunteered to help with this instance, got to sit in on meetings with the consulting company, they gave me administrative rights to starting to make some implementations, some changes. And then I guess I showed too much initiative and they ended up taking my administrative rights away. And so that really spurred me on to kind of prove them wrong because they just thought, oh, he's the tech writer, just stay in your lane. And I actually sat by the door behind where the executives would meet, and I could hear them talking about how we have a tech writer that imagines himself as some Salesforce administrator or developer. And so that's been a chip on my shoulder ever since. And that's why I was really like, okay, hold my beer and let me show you what I'm capable of. And so it really motivated me to go out and land a job. And so once I got that certification, I landed a job within the next month and basically doubled my salary. And that was because I needed to make more money because we had a lot of kids that were all in the home at the time. And so it was just a severe pressing financial need was the motivator.
How interesting. And I forgot that about you, that you have a lot of kids at home
Mhm.
and you found out the clicks, not code. That's kind of an easier way into it. You're so smart. You're working smarter, not harder.
Mhm. Yeah, and I could code, and I've been coding since childhood, basically back on the TI 99.4A and slinging basic code and doing hexadecimal for images. So I'm a hardcore nerd, but I'm not a great developer. I didn't really realize that until I met my oldest son, Anthony, who's a great developer. And things I would spend a day on, he would blow past me in 5 minutes. And so, he's gone on to do amazing things truly in the development space. But Salesforce does enable those of us that aren't A+ coders to be able to create things and to do dynamic things. And back in the day when I was building websites, they were static. Anytime I had to connect to a database, that's where I just fell off a cliff, And so
Sure.
Salesforce enabled me to, oh, we can actually get some data in motion. We can set things to happen a year from now, even if all of us have left the company. Whoever the account manager is right now will get those contract alerts. Those sorts of things just blew my mind because I knew enough about what I couldn't do on the other side of the fence to realize this is a powerful tool. And so I started telling everyone I knew about it, and then that led to eventually getting on more of a global stage once. I guess that it had to be timing because we had to have high-speed internet to be more ubiquitous and iPads to be more ubiquitous and this whole idea of certification paths and things outside of even the college realm and more of an acceptance of you don't necessarily have to have a degree in order to succeed in technology. So, and I think that technologies such as Salesforce and now ChatGPT and other AI solutions have really democratized this ability to code. And where the tables have shifted now is that we can do this with natural language. And that was the light bulb moment for me was whenever, and I call this love at first prompt, whenever I first sat down with ChatGPT and it
Better
did that first
trademark that.
prompt and I was like, holy cow, because there's so many technologies where I can wrap my mind around it pretty quick because I've had to as a technical writer and work in the localization space as well, of course. But with this, it was readily apparent that this was creating things. It was predicting what it needed to create. So it's relying on that predictive side. But to be able to generate Python code to do very specific utilities that I need in my business, in my day to day, that was a big eye opener. And so I went about creating a course around that. And then that led to other things as well. So,
So the democratization of code. Can we say now that this is going to be the new era where you don't have to go to school to learn to code? You can just prompt your way through. Is that true?
all right. Yeah. And we're not there yet. I kind of equate this and kind of what I say is 12 seconds and 120 feet. And that was the Wright brothers stats from their first flight. Now, that same day, they went to 59 seconds and 800 and something feet. So they exponentially improved that first day. And where are we now? And so it's still in its early stages, but there are so many bottlenecks and limitations that are being broken through. And this is where the nerd in me really starts to look at research papers and the things that the true AI experts are figuring out. And it's all about overcoming objections. This will serve you well in interviews or trying to sell the next thing or whatever it is. But companies are very adept at overcoming objections, the yeah buts, and the things that we see online where people say the same things they said about the internet, the exact same thing. And so that's why I'm convinced that this is not a fad because I've seen this before. And this is the next big thing. And so these companies are taking that feedback about, oh, well, what about trust? What about security? All valid concerns. Those are objections that must and will be overcome. There is a way to figure this out. When GDPR came along, it's like, oh my goodness, or how we can't, as marketers, track people as easily anymore. Oh my goodness, how are we going to ever survive? Much like you said before, with translation memory, it's always doom and gloom, but then the overcoming of the objections and figuring out and problem solving, that is where the answer is for everyone that happens to be here, live today, or anyone that watches this replay, is to me, problem solving is the secret sauce moving forward. And it's this hybrid kind of think of it as a target. It's the intersection of soft skills and hard skills. It has that mixture of both as far as you need to be able to have business acumen and communication and collaboration, and also some technical skills as well. It's one thing to be able to communicate, but to be able to execute on an idea, whether that's yours or someone else's, that's where you'll be paid well, is if you have that ability to execute. And that is borne out in the ability to problem solve.
Absolutely. Oh, so well put. And I think that's exactly the next thing to talk about the soft skills aspect because, and I know you have a presentation. There's a slide that you, if you could bring that up, the
Sure.
slide that you
Can I share my
showed
screen? Yeah.
IBM. Yeah, I love that. The top skills from IBM and how they changed. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
really cool. So talk us through what has happened and why
Yeah.
is this
This
important?
is one of the world's busiest slides, but and I've got the report that this came from that I can share in the chat as well.
Sure.
If I can get my controls out of the way, but or I'll get that to you. But the so IBM, they're really coming back into relevance. This has been what's fascinating about the age of AI is that what we used to consider dinosaurs like IBM have been mainstays in the AI game with Watson for years. You know, they were the ones with AI that had chess beat, high level chess players, something that we thought was never possible. So they have been interviewing and sending surveys to executives about every 2 or 3 years about the most sought after skills. And so this chart here shows that back in 2016, the highest, most desirable skill was a proficiency in STEM skills. And then in 2018, it dropped down to about the middle of the pack. And now it's fallen off the cliff and it's in 12th place. Then things that have moved up to the top are things such as time management at 42%, ability to work effectively in team environments, ability to communicate effectively, willingness to be flexible, agile, adaptable to change. And here's where business acumen comes in, and then ethics and integrity, which, the right answer for that is for that to be at the top. But this is truly what the executives, where they rate these. And then you start getting into some of the more hard skills. And so the shift here is that prior to AI, it was the hard skills, the STEM skills that were at the top, and then the interpersonal or soft skills down here below. And there's been this shift all of a sudden because a lot of those hard skills can be offloaded to AI, frankly. And so now where the challenge is with the soft skills, not only with humans, but also with AI. And I think that's one of the light bulb moments for me was when I realized that I was getting better results from AI if I let down my guard some, if I was more vulnerable, if I took the time to choose more emotionally charged language and finding just the right word. So that, and treating it like if you were trying to communicate to your best friend and you really wanted to convey what your frustration or your feeling was, even though this is an AI, and finding that that conveys and that sends signals to the AI as to what it is you're struggling with or what problem you're trying to solve, what the decision making process and challenges that you face in order to get a better result. And so I say that the ability to have and excel with soft skills is paramount, not only between humans, but also with AI. And so this ability to collaborate between humans and multiple AI systems, or what I call AI orchestration, this is where, once again, it's that intersection to where you're dealing with technology and with humans and keeping those humans in the loop as well. But this is that chart that you were referring to. And I say here,
Look at the
you know,
change.
the seismic shift,
Yeah.
stem falls off the cliff. And a lot of people don't like that. And
Oh,
I don't take it personally.
yeah.
I'm just the messenger. I'm just saying that here's what is being found. Not that
Hmm.
those skills are going to go away by any means, but there's definitely a mood swing here, and it's a recognition that a lot of those things that used to only be available to the select few are now available to all. And
Hmm.
I see that in my own courses. And I was I think the first person ever to have a course for Salesforce certification and add ChatGPT to it and add that as a learning co-pilot. This is back in April of this year. And I had to hide the fact that I did it because the sales dropped off because people were like, why do I need that for? But then once Salesforce started talking about AI, then it
Hmm.
started to pick back up and I could kind of reveal, okay, this is actually in here. But in that version, that new iteration of the course, I have my students who are beginners, don't know how to code at all, doing really complex things, thanks to having this learning co-pilot that can write the code for them. I can explain, okay, here's what you're going to need here. And I know, and you know that you're not going to be able to do this at this point, but the beauty is here's a prompt, and I gave them a prompt library so they could prompt that in. Also gave them my response that I got in case they get something different, so that then they can apply that and realize, oh, that's how that's done, or that's where that's placed. And to me, it's not cheating. It's similar to Googling things. And most developers Google things all the time and then retrofit that to what they need in their own instance. It's just here, it's actually writes the code for you and it writes great test coverage, et cetera. So, this, though, as it relates to whomever's here, in the localization space, and I see a few familiar names from the Salesforce space as well. And so it's an interesting mix of people here, which I love, is that our soft skills need to, that's where we need to pay attention to. And that's where I'm moving to. And leaving a lot of this, I'm actually trying to obsolete myself as a technical trainer and creating some customized custom GPTs to do a lot of that which I used to do manually myself, such as creating practice tests. And I've got custom GPTs that can do flashcards and study guides, practice test questions that are on par with what I could write, but can be generated on the fly and not require me 100 hours to create.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And oh, keep this up for just a second. I think,
Sure.
okay, so this is fascinating how the shifts have happened, what used to be important then versus now, and soft skills pushed way to the top. I want to call everyone's attention because, just like you said, there's quite a few people in the audience that are from localization space, some from Salesforce and engineering and so forth. For the people in the localization space, look how important it is. Foreign language stayed at the same place, but look, it's on the chart. So having that as a skill, you're already there. So I just want to put it out there that those that are reevaluating, do I stay in localization? What do I do with this? It's hard to get jobs maybe in some places. Just be aware of what you do and what you have and reflect on what's becoming important and what's critical, and realize that that foreign language ability can be put into many different ways. You can have many different job titles because you have that. Oh, were there other slides you wanted to bring up
Oh,
here talking
I
about
don't
that?
know. This is from a, oh, so this is from a previous talk. So just real
Oh,
quick.
nice. Yeah, go ahead.
So
I love this.
not necessarily for this crowd, but this, I call this
Mhm.
the seismic shift of constraints. And pre-AI, the biggest constraint was human capital, not enough bodies to put in the chairs. And so then the mantra that was being preached back then, which I think was a lie, was anyone can code. I don't believe anyone can code. I think that some can code, but not everybody, any more than not everyone can sing. I can't sing. My wife can sing. My kids can sing. They're very musical. I don't have that
Oh,
ability. And I think self-awareness is key in this, factoring in. So that's the greatest constraint pre-AI. But now our greatest restraint is time or constraint. And this is where we've gone from
mm,
anyone can code to anyone can be an Einstein. And this is a Salesforce term because their AI is called Einstein. And so now that is what's being espoused. And I think that that is true in a lot of ways. So now you can execute on ideas much faster. So now you've got to decide which ones are the best ideas. And in the time that you have, that is the one common thing that we all have, is it's the most valuable asset. Once you spent it, it's gone. So I've got an hourglass over my shoulder in the background, and I always turn it over before I go live to remind me and those in the crowd, what are we going to do with this? It's not something to just hear about, but what is your next best action from this? And so
mm.
I think that's about all the slides that I have.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, that was,
yeah, no
yeah,
code
those are,
area. So yeah,
oh, I love it.
and these
Yes.
images were generated by AI as
Sure.
well. So
Absolutely.
anyway, so I'll
Yeah.
stop sharing.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. And the whole thing, what's the next best thing? And is that a Salesforceism?
It is actually, and that is
Yeah.
something that is in the interface as far as based on past performance. And this is predictive AI. Here are
Yeah.
your next best actions to have more optimal results. So it's helping you to identify patterns and figure out. And this is in the context of a opportunity to close and win, or a case to close successfully, those sorts of things. But I think we can apply that concept to our own careers as well, given our past performance and then where things are heading.
Oh my gosh. There's just so much in all that you just said. And, you know, there's just multiple layers of important things to pay attention to with what you've just said. So looking at, getting into skills when you're looking at reskilling in the age of AI, you
Mhm.
have not only you can anticipate many platforms are going to just stick it on there. In fact, I looked at the bottom of this Zoom and I see now AI assistant. What? Where was that?
Right,
All of a
right there in
sudden it just,
Zoom. Yeah,
whoops. Okay. And so, cornflakes now with ChatGPT, whatever. So um, it's going to be everywhere. What do we do? Your opinion of learning and reskilling to meet whatever comes to us in AI, especially in jobs. Can you give kind of a short few points, tips? What would you suggest?
sure. So I would say hands-on experience with these tools or voice on, these can be conversational in nature. And so you can do interview prep and that be back and forth or mock interviews. And I find that I'm writing more than ever, and that's by way of prompts. And the beauty and the magic happens in prompting, not in a zero shot prompt or a single prompt that's one sentence long, but it's the back and forth, the conversational, and then providing feedback. And in essence, you're training the AI on your style, not just taking, like you were mentioning, not just taking the changes verbatim, but then doing revisions and feeding that back to the AI so that it can start to learn your style. And this is becoming easier through custom GPTs as well, so that it's not just in the context of a single chat. And soon, ChatGPT and other tools will be able to train on your unique style, not in the context of a single chat. And so, getting more hands on experience and also conversational experience, voice prompting will be very huge because it'll be in cars and everywhere, as you mentioned, and getting okay with that and not panicking. I think that's the key, is that you're not going to be irrelevant. You're just not. And that is true of everyone because you bring to the table your own unique experience and voice. And so the goal here is to not look and compare to others, but look and take that self assessment as to what your strengths are. Now, can you lean into that? And Marina, you mentioned foreign language. And that's something that I have to remind people about all the time, because there's people I know personally that are in the Salesforce space and they're struggling finding a job. I'm like, you know Spanish or you know Italian or you know French.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is such a valuable skill
Mm-hmm.
for Salesforce, because there are companies that have clients that, oh, by the way, that's their language, and they need people that know the platform and know that language. But then also with AI, there's some gaps there, as far as they're not going to be perfectly fluent in every language. Now, eventually they may be, but even then, having that ability to do the QA or the data management, the data cleansing, there are so many new career paths around prompt engineering and things to deal with data, because AI will magnify your data in whatever instance you're dealing with. And if it's good and clean data, it's great. And you would know this, and I know this as well, thinking back to the projects I used to work on at ILE, where I remember dealing with an HP project going into 23 different languages. And so the English version had to be the absolute gold standard before it
Exactly.
went out, because there were
Right.
so many stages it had to go through. The same holds true now, whether that is a website you're creating or podcast or a course that you're wanting to get into other languages, and having that nuanced understanding of the challenges when you get into localization. And is that is huge, and you have that understanding if you're multilingual, especially. So
Ooh.
so yeah, that's some things that you can do is, and I think just embracing it, just accepting that it's not a fad and it's not here to take your jobs. Your job may change. And most of us, and this is what's so funny, Marina, is the vast majority of people are unhappy in the job that they're in. They're looking for something else, but then they're
Yeah.
scared of AI and like, oh, I don't want it to take my job. So look at this as a great opportunity. You're
Mm-hmm.
actually alive during the start of like a whole new industrial revolution in a lot of ways, and it's at the
Mm-hmm.
ground floor, and it's still early. Even though we're a year in from the birth of ChatGPT, look at how much has changed in the past year. But let's think about the next 25 years and where it might be. And so 1 year difference is not going to make or break your career. So I think the sooner you can get in, get hands on, get voice on, and iterate and improve, that's the answer.
Excellent. Excellent. So, all those good tips, then I think I heard you on one of your previous interviews, putting on the resume. So say that you're a Salesforce person or you're in whatever localization, whatever, and you want to say that you're using the best aspects of AI to help you learn. Now, you don't really want to say that. So maybe since you're still in the interim, you're going to put something about working on so and so project, and I've developed a prompt library. Is that the
Mhm.
wording you said? How would you put that on a resume?
Right. So there's a lot of buzzwords you can put on a resume or LinkedIn profile that will cause you to rise to the top because recruiters are searching for these terms. So prompt or prompt library would be a good one, prompt engineering. And now, and this is only a couple of weeks old, and I already have a course out on it around custom GPTs
Yes.
and hopefully the GPT store will come out. You know, thanks to all the drama with OpenAI and Sam Altman, et cetera, the future remains uncertain there. But you can, if you're a ChatGPT Plus subscriber, create your own custom GPTs to do just about anything. And I've created a lot around Salesforce specific things, but also I needed a QR code generator. So I created one in like 5 minutes on GPT. And so it's a custom GPT. So this is not you necessarily, oh, I'm just getting all the answers from ChatGPT, but you're creating your own custom GPTs for your own workflow. And these would have been invaluable back in the day when we were in ILE, all the different things that we needed to remember. And you can actually upload knowledge documents and have it train on that. So it's specific. Think of it as a baseline out of the box ChatGPT, and then your own workflow, your own background, your own rules, whatever project requirements you have. And so you could create custom GPTs that are private to just you that are specific to the projects that you're working on. And if you have a tried and tested process that you adhere by, you put that in there, and that will help you to stay on course. And so you could then demonstrate through real world stories how you're using generative AI to help elevate your game in fill in the blank. And
Mhm.
this way, and that's the key, is to have stories to tell whenever you're asked, okay, tell me what you're up to now, or what's the most challenging thing you've done in the localization space, or how are you approaching AI with localization or Salesforce or whatever it may be. And so this way, you are creating things. I call this being a creator in a consumption world. And these can be spun up fairly quickly, and they can serve you either behind the scenes as a utility that just you use, or for those you share the link with, or you can open those up to the upcoming GPT store and have those do lead generation for you. You may be able to sell those or have revenue share, but I think where the money is in the GPT store is driving people to your website and then the call to action from there. So
Ooh, wow, that's a wild west. You
yeah.
know, the new future coming up. And I know you've done a lot, especially in your courses. Before we end, please do put your information for how do we find you on Udemy? And I
Yeah,
know
so I'm
you're,
on Udemy platform, and you can actually let me pull up. I'm going to give you a bunch of links in the chat, the
yeah,
IBM
please do.
report,
Yeah, that'd be
and
great.
then so let me just do this real quick before I forget. I'm on the Udemy platform, and let's see.
And you mentioned a different one?
So I've got my own platform,
Oh, sure. Yes.
examreadynow.com. And so you can subscribe to all my courses there, all my Salesforce courses. I'm working on a platform for my ChatGPT courses and prompt engineering and all that. Not ready to announce that yet, but on the Salesforce side, you can go to examreadynow.com, have coupon code Black Friday. And
Cool.
then if you're wanting to hit my ChatGPT stuff, you can find me on the Udemy platform and just search for Mike Wheeler or Salesforce or ChatGPT Mike Wheeler, and you'll find me there. And I do have a new course that I'm currently creating that is Salesforce careers in the age of
Nice.
AI, basically. I've got a lot of success stories of students out there that have gone on to great things. And I go into where things are heading relevant to Salesforce as well. So you can check that out on examreadynow.com.
Fantastic. Oh, I love all that stuff. And yeah, I really feel that all soft skills that we've talked about on
Mhm.
that chart are so important. In fact, I'll be offering quite a few in short courses, and I'm calling that Soft Skills Accelerator because to
Cool.
me, it's so super, super important, and especially to give people hope and a direction what's coming up. And people just never really thought soft skills would amount to much. Well, it's like you said, really empowering where we're going to go next. So we're going to open up to Q&A here in a minute. I wanted to thank you, Mike. It's so wonderful to be in touch with you and reconnect and get all of this wonderful knowledge from you. And I know you're just always reinventing and putting new things out there. I love it. And you're definitely a class act to follow. So let's see now. I know there's a few people in the audience who would love to ask questions. And let's see. And we had a problem with the link. So
I see a raised
Wendy's.
hand.
Oh, that'd be Stefan. Go ahead,
Stefan.
Stefan.
Hello,
Welcome.
Stefan.
Hey, Mike, how's it going? Hi, Marina.
Hello.
Pleasure to be here this morning. Um, I'm particularly interested in the jump you made at some point from thinking about teaching and getting involved in courses and monetization. Sure, that's kind of a thing that Marina is very interested in as well, and she's been busy with for a while. So tell us a little bit more about that. We know plenty about AI, not much new I've learned this morning there, but I would love to learn a little bit more about monetization and how you got involved with that.
Sure. Yeah, great question. I love creating courses. And there was a time when I did not want to put myself out there. And I think that's the biggest hurdle is when you do something like this, it
That's
opens
not
you
a
up.
problem with me either, but
That's
For
good.
me
That's
either.
good. So for those of you out there that may be a little camera shy or worried about what people are going to think what they think, and it's not for everybody. And so no one has a 5.0 rating on Udemy. I come in at a 4.5. There are people that have 4.6, 4.7. Those are the top 0.01%. And I think I'm in the top 0.1%, frankly, as far as the number of instructors out there. But there are people out there that have 10 to 20 times as many students as I have, into the millions, the multi-millions of students. So I can't imagine that, but that's what I'm shooting for, frankly. But the approach here was that I discovered Udemy by way of a friend that alerted me to a sale on Udemy. The running joke is there's always a sale on courses on Udemy. And I impulse bought a lot of courses, and I realized, because I'm not one to pay money when I can figure something out myself. And I could tell they were doing something right. And it reminded me of the Snuggie, actually. And I spent so many months dissecting and understanding user behavior and how the path that people take on a website and getting them to click this button that you want them to click, basically. And the goal for me was to pass them on to Snuggie. And if they bought one, I would receive a referral commission. That people were making money doing that, realizing, okay, this instructor probably receives a cut from this and that one. And so I looked to see what was out there for what I knew, which was Salesforce. And I know a lot of other things, affiliate marketing. I've thought about doing courses on that, or translation, or technical writing, WordPress. There's so many things I could do courses on, but I saw that there was nothing out there for the starting point of Salesforce. So I was thinking top of the funnel of marketing concepts, largest possible audience to start with, rather than niching down. I think you start with mass appeal and then you niche down. But also the danger when you niche down into a more complex topic is you can't assume no prior knowledge. The beauty of for beginners is you assume no prior knowledge. That way it can relate to everyone. Once you get into people being in different paths on their journey, that gets a lot harder to cater towards, because then you say, okay, in order to take this course, you got to first take that course and then take this course and get this certification. And I've heard others say a confused mind never buys. And so giving them one option instead of two helps. And that's one reason why I'm just talking about exam ready now and not this other thing that I've got in the works. Like, it's not there yet. So I think just really the goal is taking what's in here and creating a digital product. And that is frictionless, it's scalable, it's open all the time. And you can have residual revenue for things that you created years ago. And I've got courses that are woefully overdue for updates, and I'm working on getting those
Oh, yeah.
updated. But frankly, there's things that I created 7 years ago that I'm making money on while I'm talking to you all. So it is an amazing thing. It's not easy. You've got to really be good at structure and communication, the soft skills combined with the hard skills. and then figuring out where's the need and then how can I fill this void. It's the same concept as when I identified that there was no website for Snuggie sightings, so I filled that void with a humorous website. So it's either humor or entertainment or education or something like that. Those are the goals.
We have a question from Frederico,
Yep.
who is asking, is learning JavaScript required to be a coder in Salesforce or just learn Apex? What do you think about that?
So there is a flavor of JavaScript in there with what are called Lightning Web Components, and then Apex is the core language that Salesforce runs on. It's similar to Java. And I think that all things being equal, if you're brand new to coding, I think it would behoove you to learn something like Python actually first, because Python it's the most in-demand skill by far. And those that I talked about that have 3 million plus students on Udemy, whereas I have like 250,000 or something, they teach Python. And that's because that's only going to grow in demand because a lot of these AI jobs require Python ability, and you can do a lot with Python. And then I would focus on learning Apex, and you can use ChatGPT to do a lot of that for you as well. In my admin course, I show you how to do some some Apex code, sorry, using ChatGPT that you can use inside your own Salesforce instance to do mass updates to records, update record types, etc. And there's certifications around that. I would say the platform developer one would be the main goal as far as becoming a developer. But I think it's a good idea to learn the fundamentals by way of the administrator certification and then go for your PD1. JavaScript, you'll pick that up as you start learning Lightning Web Components in that context, but that's also a very high in demand skill. And I think that it's that lateral movement ability. And that's what I like about JavaScript and Python is that doesn't just box you in to Salesforce land. And I did an interview with a student recently who has gone super successful on TikTok, and she started her own movement, hashtag degree free. She got her foot in the door as a Salesforce administrator. She ran a tattoo parlor and then needed to get into tech and found my course and got certified, and then like doubled or tripled what she was making. But then she went off on to what a lot of people probably thought was a tangent. Why would you stop making well into the six figures and start this degree free thing? And she's got over 30 million views on TikTok and is kind of become a celebrity in this whole space of degree free movement and all that. The reason I bring that up, though, is that you can go in thinking you're going to be this thing or this is going to serve this purpose, but it does open a door. It gets your foot in a door that you don't know what might lurk behind that door for you. And it doesn't have to be Salesforce. And I'm really tech agnostic. I don't really care what tool you use. It's just get the thing done. Be able to execute on the idea, whether that is Azure or AWS, Google Cloud, Salesforce, whatever it may be, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. So, but great question.
Okay, another question, and we're doing really well on time. Hey, Mike, any thoughts around sales engagement tools? For example, native Salesforce sales engagement versus Outreach or Groove or SalesLoft, etc.
So I've not used Groove or SalesLoft, not real well versed in sales engagement. So I think that if you're interested in sales engagement, here's the assignment I would give for you is to put that into ChatGPT or some other AI tool. And once again, I'm tech agnostic. It can be other tools like Claude or Bard or whatever it may be, but start that conversation and start asking around, okay, my interest is in sales engagement, and you probably know a lot about that. And so feeding it what your beliefs are, but also what are the strengths and weaknesses between these different tools. And then how can I incorporate that in whatever the goals are that you're trying to attain, whether that's a job or creating a solution or an app on the App Exchange. And you might be able to take, and this is something you can do actually, is to find those core strengths of all those different tools and then figure out, okay, can I create something that can go and do likewise, or could be potentially a competitor of that, or it could be the poor man's version of that as far as, okay, I can't build all that, but if I could create a free GPT that could do 80% of that, that could become wildly popular once the GPT store hits. have that feed into my website and start pivoting into, and I don't know where you're at in your journey. You may already be quote unquote an expert in this space, but a thought leader, someone that's thoughtful, that's created these solutions to then start creating your own platform. And so I think that's something that we all need to think about moving forward as creators, because everyone's a creator now. It's the creator economy, is that we need to start thinking about our platform. And I don't mean a website, I don't mean social media presence, I mean all of it. And this is something that, as I've been looking into writing books as well, and that is one of the things of a book proposal. And I've got a book right here about guide to literary agents. So, I mean, this is a very
Oh,
real thing, and not ready to announce anything yet. But one of the core sections on that for a book proposal is the writer's platform. And it's establishing, okay, how can the writer help sell whatever book they're wanting to write? Not that we're all going to go out and write a book, nor should you, because it is a daunting enterprise. You're not going to make a lot of money from it, et cetera, fill in the blank. Much more money to be made by creating courses. There's a reason why I've been creating courses this whole time and not writing books. So, but the point is the platform. What is your platform and what is your reach? And a lot of that can be improved through frequency and just always trying to do one thing better each time you post. I saw a video by Mr. Beast. He was talking about how you can improve by just doing 100 videos and just improving one thing with each video and just think, okay, where do I need to improve? Where can I improve? What can I do better? And so just think about your own personal platform and how you can use these tools and tech and new advancements to show that you are aware of what's going on and you can leverage it to advance yourself. And so that is where that sales engagement, you flip the script to where, and overcoming objections and all those things, is treating your career as a business. I call this you incorporated. And that is where you can start to dissect those different tools, what they do well, and try some demos. You can ask for demos. I'm approaching companies now that have AI solutions and just saying, can I get a demo of this? And then I just start asking a bunch of questions. And some of that is I may end up either using it or promoting it or coming up with something better. And not that I can do all that, but I can find people to do it, you know. So I'm kind of I'm always in idea hunting mode. I'm always like on the lookout. So it can be a
absolutely.
curious chase.
We have a lot of people saying, thank you so much. Wonderful session,
Awesome.
great insights, so inspiring. So, Mike will be in touch with you and keep doing what you're doing. You're really help pushing us into a new, exciting era. So, I'm really grateful to have you here today with us.
Grateful to be here. Thank you, Marina.
All right. See you, everybody. See you, Mike. Take care.